Good afternoon. The story takes place in a small Michigan town in 1944. The setting is an old building that once was a bus stop station and postal office. It opens in 1993 with Meghan Michelle Appleby returning after being away for nearly 49 years. She soon discovers memories don't easily disappear over passing time. The lights slowly rise on Meghan and Curtis. What became of Greta and the sailor?
I can't remember. There's a few pages left with nearly half the diary empty. Doesn't that strike you odd?
Oh, I don't know. Most diaries start out like a rocket, then fizzle out like a match.
Do you feel like stretching?
Well, we better push on. There's no telling how long the batteries will last.
Okay, here's the last bit. It's still December 24th on Christmas Eve. The moon was unusually bright, and you could see for quite a distance. That bus driver was really something. He worked with a mechanic until 2 o'clock in the morning. I kept them fed with donuts and coffee. They seemed pleased. The trio of singers had the most angelic voices I have ever heard. I never knew where they came from or where they were going. For that matter, I didn't even catch any of their names. All I know is that Christmas Eve was special. What I am about to write is greatly disturbing. After everyone was bedded down, I got up to check on the front door. The moonlight allowed me to see. The lights start dimming slowly halfway through Meghan's rating to black. The lights slowly rise on Greta and Michael. Do you have a sweetheart?
Sure. I mean, I did. She came right up to me and said she wasn't about to be waiting around for no sailor boy.
Well, that wasn't very nice of her.
No, I suppose it wasn't. But I admired her honesty. Nothing I hate more is a liar.
Will you write to me?
Of course I will. I don't have any other girl to share my thoughts with.
You're not just saying that, are you?
You heard what I said. I hate liars, and I'm not one of them. You believe me, don't you?
I want to believe you.
Until tonight, what I wanted more than anything was to get into the war so I could prove myself. I didn't care what happened to me, just so long as I made my family proud. But it's funny now, as I look into your eyes, and part of me wants to go to Kansas with you.
You do?
I'm not lying.
The bus will be leaving at daybreak. I suppose we should get some sleep.
We can sleep on the bus.
I guess we could.
Do you know what I feel like doing?
I think I do.
Do you?
Yes.
Michael gently takes her into his arms, and they tenderly kiss as Petrice enters from the back room. She stands in the shadows by the counter, watching them as the lights slowly dim to black. The lights rise slowly on Meghan and Curtis. Oh, that was one story my mother never told us about. Meghan points to the last date logged in the diary.
December 25th, 1945. For a day meant to bring thankfulness and good cheer, I don't recall a more saddened chain of events occurring in one place and time. I never knew I held such strong feelings for her, but When the bus door shut and I saw Greta waving goodbye to me through the window, I swear I broke into tears after the bus fell out of sight. The exhaustion I feel as I write makes me wonder if I'll be able to complete what really requires the length of a novel to describe. I'll do my best. Christmas Day morning was cold and overcast. The buses came and went. I was thinking about Greta's departure and anticipated her father's arrival when Marlene walked in.
The lights dim slowly to black as Megan's voice fades. The lights slowly rise on Petrice standing at the counter with Marlene entering, carrying several bags and a suitcase.
Let me give you a hand, Marlene. Going somewhere? I need a one-way ticket to Indianapolis. On Christmas Day? Yes, if you don't mind. There's a bus going that way any minute. I suppose you already knew that. Yes, I did. Going to see family? I'm going to go see my husband. Wonderful! He's alive? The Army sent 2 nice men to notify me just yesterday. Well, that's just about the nicest news I've heard in a long time, is he? Yes, he's all in one piece with arms and legs and other important things. I'm so happy for you, Marlene. I know how much this means to you after what you've been through. Thank you. I'll be catching a train out of Indianapolis for Maryland. That's where they're keeping him. I'll find a small place to stay there until it's time to bring him home. That little voice you were hearing was right. I'm gonna miss you. What have you been hearing lately? Only a jumble of words rolling around, and I haven't been able to decide which ones are his or nobody. Keep listening and you'll know when he does. You think so? Yes, Petrice, I do. The sound of an approaching bus is heard. Let me get the ticket for you. She quickly goes to the counter, does the necessary stamping, and returns to Marlene. I should have come earlier. Here you go. Thank you. Remember that little voice, Petrice. It'll comfort you. Well, I'd better get on the bus if I want to see my husband. Yes, you better do that. Here, let me help you. Merry Christmas, Petrice. I'll be thinking of you. You too. I better go. They give one another a warm hug and then carry the luggage out the front door. Within moments, Petrice steps into the doorway with the sound of the departing bus leaving the station as she waves her goodbyes. Petrice slowly closes the door and is overcome with emotion, leaning against the wall in tears. Within a moment later, Mrs. Goldberg enters. Mrs. Goldberg, it's pretty cold to be walking outside today. I'm dressed for it. Please, post this tomorrow, Mrs. Appleby. Zona walks to the front door and stops. Did she like the gold bracelet? I haven't given it to her yet, Mrs. Goldberg. Why not? I'm not exactly sure, but I can tell you. Mr. Heisenberg enters and is visibly upset. Zona moves over to the benches and sits down, listening over her shoulder. Mrs. Appleby, do you know where my Greta is? She's gone, Mr. Heisenberg. Gone? What are you telling me, Mrs. Appleby? She left this morning. Where to? I can only tell you she left. This is all you can say to her, Papa? My little girl runs away, and you won't tell me where she is? Well, I know how much this must hurt you, but she's old enough to make her own decisions, Mr. Heisenberg. Who gives the right to keep her from me? Not my right, but hers. This is Greta's decision, and not mine.
I make the decisions, Mrs. Appleby. I know what's best for her.
She apparently thinks otherwise.
She is too young to think.
I'm truly sorry, Mr. Heisenberg, but her absence is totally her own decision.
He is dumbfounded with a hollow stare. I have lost everything.
She may just need time to think things over.
You have a daughter. How can you do this to me?
Whatever is between Greta and you forced her decision. Life has its way of taking those who we love away for reasons we can't understand. I'm sorry, but please let her go.
His lifeless posture reflects a hollow man as Mrs. Goldberg stands and walks to him. Mr. Heisenberg? There is a quiet calm between them. I feel your pain. She slowly walks up to him and holds his hand while looking into his eyes. He nods his head to her and then to Petrice. Then he walks to the front door and exits.
Why did you do that, Mrs. Goldberg?
The loss of one's child has no special religion or nationality. Merry Christmas, Mrs. Appleby. She turns and exits, leaving Petrice standing alone as the lights slowly dim to black. The lights slowly rise on Meghan and Curtis. Did she ever see Mr. Heisenberg again?
Not that I know of. After my mom and I left here, we lost contact with almost everyone. A short time later, we did receive a letter mentioning that your grandfather had sold his farm.
She never talked about it. And I guess it will always remain a secret.
Well, we won't find the answer in here. That's the last written page in her diary.
They stand. I'm curious. What became of Jason?
He went with us, of course, and lived out his days in our home. He quietly passed away several years ago. When I last saw him in the hospital, he whispered, "Maggie, I'll soon be finding my brother, Louis now. Never was there a better friend than my dear J.D.
How about your father? Did he make it home?
No. My mom woke up early one morning and came in to me with tears. And I asked her why she was crying, and she said, "I heard the whisper." "What whisper?" I asked. 2 weeks later, the army notified her that he died crossing the English Channel when his troop ship was torpedoed by a German submarine. My mother, she never remarried.
I'm so sorry. I am so sorry, Meghan. Well, are you ready to go? She nods her head and takes a moment, scanning the entire room.
I'm going to write this book, Curtis. I owe it to all the wonderful memories and people who enriched my life. Thank you for spending this time with me.
It's my pleasure. Oh, one last question. Did your mother give you Zona's bracelet?
No, on the morning Greta boarded the bus for Kansas, my mother, Petrice, placed it in your mom's hand, saying, "Merry Christmas and wear it well."
Curtis slowly pulls back his shirt cuff, revealing a golden bracelet on his wrist. She wore it every day in her last 3 years before she passed away. And she gave it to me to remember her by.
Mrs. Goldberg's daughter Marta would be pleased for you carrying her memory too. Wear it well, Curtis.
He places his arm around her shoulder as they walk slowly out the front door. Within seconds, the car engine was starting up, and Meghan re-entering into the building, carrying the old radio and placing it on the counter.
This is where you belong, my old friend.
As she leaves the room, it is bathed in a moon glow, with music lightly playing on the radio, Bing Crosby singing, "I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, like the ones I used to know, where the radio is lit by a single spotlight, as it was in the beginning of the play, and slowly the lights dim to black. The end."